Today is Monday, September 8th, 2025, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 4, Episode 26, Groovy, Google, and Gemini with Guillaume Laforge. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom, joined by my good friend and co-host, Deshaun Carter. Deshaun, how's it going?
It is a wonderful day to be a Spring developer. I am Deshaun. I love my job, and I'm jazzed to be here. It's an amazing time, and we're having a lot of fun. So, yeah, it's good stuff. And I will say, like, hey, everybody, if you're here in the live, like, say hi. Let us know where you're from, because my mom and dad are always watching. Hi, mom and dad.
Yeah. And as a reminder, you can catch this live on the Spring Developer YouTube channel, usually every Monday from 1 to 2. But when we have special guests, we change some times around like we did today. But if you missed the live stream, you can catch the replay there. And we take this and turn this into a podcast, so you can get this wherever you get your podcasts from. Whew, it's been a couple of weeks since Spring 1. We didn't have a show last week, but it's good to be back. How are you doing? You feeling refreshed after Vegas?
I just said a little bit ago that I might still be recovering. It was good. Like, lots of great stuff, a lot of learnings, a lot of new stuff to try. And that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm still recovering from all of the energy that I got.
Yeah, I know it's like software developers, we signed up for a lifetime of learning, but man, it just never stops. Like, I just feel like I'm overwhelmed with everything. So many things to try to catch up on. So, and that's what we'll do today. I'm really excited about today. Somebody I've known for a long time, who's very influential in the Java community. Excited to have this conversation. So I think without further ado, we'll just kind of bring him onto the stage. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Guillaume Laforge, who is the co-founder of Groovy, a Java champion, an author, a developer advocate, speaker, podcast host, open source contributor. Did I miss anything there, Guillaume?
So much stuff. I'm a dad. I'm French. What else? No, that's a good, a good overview of what I've been doing for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot. How do you have time for being a dad and everything?
I still struggle. I don't sleep. Usual stuff, I guess. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to join you today.
Yeah, thanks for taking some time. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to come on. Like I said in the title, we have a lot of things that we can cover today. We'll just kind of see where the conversation takes us. But again, for the live stream, if you have any questions, please go ahead and throw them in there. So I think one place I wanted to start is I have the honor and privilege of speaking at a conference this week called Community Over Code, which is run by the Apache Software Foundation. And I'm giving a talk on Groovy AI. So AI for Groovy developers / Java developers, right? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about Groovy, just because that's kind of where I think I first met you. You started Groovy back in 2003, I think I saw.
Yeah, exactly. So I was one of the co-founders, actually. The two guys who actually had the initial idea were Jim Strachan and Bob McWhirter. Mm-hmm. And I joined the project as soon as they launched it, basically. And after a little while, after a year or two, I took the lead and spent quite a bunch of time on the project since then.
Yeah, what was kind of the motivation around Groovy? Like, why was it started in the first place? Because there were, there's Java and there's so many other languages in the JVM space.
So when I started working on Groovy, I had that's at the same time I was actually working for a small software vendor, which was doing some kind of how could I call that nowadays? It was called an application generation engine. Like basically what you would do today with just one prompt, you would design some data structures, some metadata, and it would generate an application for you. And the funny thing was that it was a Java application, it was hosted on Tomcat, it was a SaaS application. But when one customer needed like a small update or a new component or something, we had to do maintenance, Windows, and shutdown for everyone. So I was like, if we had some kind of scripting solution that would allow me to just update things live and add new components, new UI buttons and whatnot, that would be kind of handy. And I'm a Java developer, so I need something that looks like Java, that feels like Java, and that's easy to integrate in a Java application. and that's how I got interested in working on Groovy. Basically, that really felt that field like a need and an itch that I was scratching at the time.
Yep.
I was going to
I
say
thought
that
you
reminds
were
me
going to
of
say.
that time. I was maybe not the most advanced, maybe not the best practice, but at that time, one of the things that we could do with Java, with the JVM, is we could write stuff to make changes to classes that are running on the JVM. Is that what we're talking about? Like, hey, I'm not deploying new artifacts. I'm making changes in real time to what's running in production.
Well, there are always things that you could do with class loader tricks and so on. So that wasn't necessarily, let's say, 100% new stuff, but that was way more complicated if you didn't have this long wait and all this runtime to plug and wire into your application. So there were ways to do that, but that wasn't as straightforward. Whereas here, even the end users could hack and customize their components and deploy them and so on. So that was a kind of a convenience. And it's something that I got the chance to work for a few customers who integrated Groovy in that way, like customizing screens and adding business rules to an existing application at runtime without having to redeploy anything or using some tricky class loader magic, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say my kind of journey into Groovy was 25 years ago. I was building, or somewhere around there. Man, I'm getting old. Somewhere around there, I was building web applications on the JVM using a framework like Struts. And I was just like, I'm just trying to build like a simple web application. There's like a lot going on here, and Java wasn't what it was today. It was very verbose at that time, right?
True.
And so I kind of fell into Groovy because we shifted over to Groovy and Grails at work. And I just found like a lot of the builder classes where I want to build some HTML or some JSON, like just so much more concise. And it was just a lot of those like niceties that you have. And I was like, oh, I found it because of this one nice thing. And then I found a couple other nice things about it. And I was like, oh, this is just like really nice to work with. So I imagine most people kind of had that similar progression, but.
Oh yeah, for sure. There were lots of developers starting using Groovy because of Grails, and that was a kind of refreshing compared to the classical way of building web apps. You had something that felt like Ruby on Rails, which was quite trendy at that time.
Yeah, for sure. Build a blog in 7 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Grails was popular. All the cool kids were doing it, right? Everybody took it for a spin. That definitely helped me understand from working on Groovy, how did you end up where you are now?
That's a good question. So I worked full-time on Groovy until 2015. Unfortunately, in 2015, it sounds kind of negative, but it is in a way. People fired the Groovy and Grails team. There were some reduction in personnel, etc., and they decided, to cut a branch, the one I was sitting on, and that's when I started being progressively less involved in Groovy itself. So I'm still part of the project management committee, etc., but I haven't committed anything recently, for example. So I've been talking about Groovy, writing about Groovy for such a long time that one of my friends, who back in the day I met him, he was at Sun Microsystem, and then Oracle, and then later on Google, and he told me, yeah, you've been doing advocacy like forever for Groovy and Grails and Micronaut and so on. And what about making it your job, like a job of developer advocate, but for Google Cloud Technologies? And so there was an opening for such a role for me that was waiting for me. And that's how I joined Google in, when was that, 2016, I think.
Awesome.
So yeah, 9 years ago. And I've covered a bunch of topics, but mostly all the things around serverless. So So deploying functions and containers serverlessly, etc., fully managed platforms. I've always been very interested in service orchestration, workflows, etc. So I've covered that. And for the past 2 years, 3 years, 2 years and a half, I've been covering everything generative AI ever since we had Gemini, and even before that, the Palm model that everybody has forgotten about nowadays, but everything is Gemini. So I'm covering everything Gemini or deriving from Gemini, but always with my Java hat on. I'm a Java champion, so you'd bet I would use Java or sometimes Groovy. I was going to say Groovy. Java for that, and sometimes Groovy indeed.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the Google and Gemini stuff, but I want to come back to the developer advocate part. It seems like you're really enjoying this role. And I think, Deshaun and I often say, like, we were developer advocates before someone was paying us to do so. Like, that's just kind of being involved in the community. So it seems like it was a natural progression for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way I've been sharing, I've always, I'm curious. So I like to learn new stuff. And as I learn something new, what I'm going to do, I'm going to maybe write an article or create a demo or a small app. Hey, I can push that on GitHub and share that with the world. And maybe, actually, I have enough content to craft like an abstract for a talk, for a conference. Hey, let's go to a conference and share with others what I've learned along the way, best practices, or the patterns that I managed to or that evolved from that code base, etc. So that's clearly my way of learning that led to my way of sharing with the world and advocacy in general, basically.
Yeah, we often get questions like, how do you get into developer advocacy? And I don't think it's just one day you wake up and decide like that's what you want to do, right? It's like it's a progression over your career, and it doesn't have to be a long progression. Like, I'm not saying you need to do this for 20 years and then be a developer advocate. There probably is some period of time where you're a developer first, but then like you quickly find out like I really like learning new things and I like sharing them with the community, and this is a something that you can do in your career. And I wish somebody would have told me that early on, because it's like when you get into coding, you're like, oh, I'm just going to write code for the rest of my life. Like, there are many avenues to take in this profession, right? So it's exciting. Cool. So I wanted to mention something else too, because we've been talking about Groovy, and people may not realize it. I mean, some people do, but you can use Groovy. You probably might be even using Groovy every day and not even know it. So if you're using something like Gradle, the build file is written in Groovy, and now you're using Groovy. So, and you can use Groovy in the world of AI if you wanted to, with Spring AI, with LangChain4j. And there's, I don't know, Deshaun, you've worked on countless number of like CI/CD pipelines, and a lot of that is written in Groovy, right?
Yep.
Jenkins.
Yeah. So you may be using Groovy and you're not even realizing it yet.
So I assume, again, Groovy and Gradle, I assume that you default to Gradle. Is that a good assumption? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yes, I'm usually using Gradle, but I also often use Maven for my builds because not everybody is on like a bleeding edge of Gradle, so I tend to show Maven as well. But and of course because nowadays you can use Gradle with Kotlin, but I use Groovy obviously rather than the Kotlin flavor. I'm biased.
For sure, and that's okay. You're allowed to be.
Thanks.
So a lot of the work you're doing over at Google is in the generative AI space. I think you said the last couple of years. One of the things kind of Deshaun and I go out and try to talk about is like this AI thing is kind of new for everyone, but for the longest time it's like been associated with Python, right? Like Python had all of these frameworks and tools for machine learning and deep learning and building large language models, and that was great. But we're kind of past that now, right? And we're all kind of consumers of these large language models. So you're out talking about AI for the Java ecosystem. Have you found similar stories to us where we go into companies like, oh, we can use Java for AI? I didn't realize that. How have those interactions been?
Yeah, there's always this surprise because especially people with a background in machine learning. Usually they've been using Python out of the box by default, etc. So there's, I mean, especially I would say they're not enterprise developers who are used to seeing Java everywhere, because Java is well, it may be dead, like it's been dead for many years, right?
Yes.
But it's always been there and very strongly. So, and for that kind of crowd, of course, you can do lots of stuff in Java, and they discover as well that you can do machine learning with Java. But yeah, the data scientists, etc., they tend to use Python. They are also surprised. Oh, you can do that in Java as well. Wow, that's cool. Then it means that for integrating, it'll be less complicated because we have a Java backend and so on. And most of the, there's the, so it's a bit like a Pareto rule, but designing a new machine learning model, okay, maybe you will continue doing PyTorch and JAX and that kind of stuff. And that's fine if you do that in Python, but it's less than 20% of Pareto. It's 80-20, but it's like less than 1% of the developers are actually or really need Python to use those kind of frameworks. But the rest of us, we integrate LLM, we integrate agent frameworks. It's not like we need to be able to compute the matrices, ourselves. So we just need libraries. And in Java, most of the LLMs you can reach them via some kind of REST API or endpoint, and then you've got SDKs and so on. It's just an API that you call ultimately. So it's straightforward to use for a Java developer nowadays.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be like the start of my talk, is like you can write a Groovy script to talk to, say, OpenAI's API, and that's great. That'll get you started. But after that, like, there are frameworks out there to kind of help you solve all of the problems that you're going to have to solve for, because there's a lot more than just talking to a REST API, when it comes to building generative AI applications. So, Deshaun says every week, it's a great time to be a Java developer.
Yeah, it is. Fantastic. I have a question, though.
Yeah.
Because of your work in the AI space and because of what you're doing with Gemini, I bet you get to see a lot of interesting use cases. Interesting in both positive, like, ooh, that's cool that they're doing that, and interesting, like, why are you using AI to do that? Can you give us some examples of things that you've seen that have caught your eye, good or bad?
Yeah, so there's one thing I'm not, and maybe I'm a little bit guilty of that myself. I'm seeing chatbots everywhere. And sometimes it's like a corporate Monday that, we need to add AI to our app. Let's add a chatbot. And no, please don't do that. So there's kind of this counter example of we should put chatbots everywhere, whereas LLMs or LLM-powered apps can benefit from this smartness of AI without having or offering some kind of chatbot. So things like offering proactively like summaries of the ongoing document that you're looking at, or automatically classifying things, etc. I think are more interesting use cases than just chatbots everywhere. So there's that aspect that I'm seeing. And sometimes, let's say, over the summer, I met a customer who, I'll spare the details, but the key thing is they're offering some kind of platform for students to give them access to interesting things to do, museums or cinemas or concerts and that kind of stuff. And they needed to improve their search feature. So let's say for Valentine's Day, you'd like to do something romantic, but maybe this movie that is mentioned, it doesn't say romantic or love story or something. So how can you use LLMs and its ability and their abilities to classify content to say, it matches with that topic or that theme of the day? Or for Halloween, maybe like visiting an old castle, it's not necessarily scary, but maybe it could be in the theme of Halloween, And I liked when I like those use cases which are somewhat less obvious than, again, those stupid chatbots everywhere.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think part of that, like you said, is from the enterprise. You see a lot of enterprises kind of mandating like that we use AI. So like we're all still trying to figure this out. What are some of the best use cases for it? And as you said, most people kind of default to whatever chatbot they can use.
Unfortunately.
Search, but that you kind of boil it down to search. I've been saying for years that just the search capabilities, just even the similarity search that we get just from the vector databases, the search capability is like mind blowing. If you've ever built your own search, or even if you've used the Lucines and the other things, and you've had your fun cryptic and in order to match things, the search capability that we have with these LLMs, AI powered search, is mind blowing. If you've ever done that in the past, if you've ever had to do an index or a full character matching, like it's just crazy. And that is an absolute powerful use case. Any use cases where you're like, yeah, you probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't use LLM for that.
Maybe chatbots.
Chatbots in general. Yeah.
All right. One thing I wanted to ask you about. So you do a lot of work with Gemini. And I am somebody who's like playing around with all the different models. And I'm guessing you have a lot of experience with Gemini, but probably testing out other models as well. A new model comes out every week. It's the greatest thing ever. Like the benchmarks are through the roof. I've stopped paying attention to benchmarks. I think a lot of us have. Like, how do you kind of gauge like how a model feels? Do you just go out and start using it, putting it to work? Like, is that the best way to figure it out?
Yeah, I think so, because benchmarks give some numbers and some rankings, but sometimes it's different when you feel the LLM itself. And for example, let's say Claude models are really great for coding, but they are not necessarily always the ones at the top of the benchmark. But there's really more than just a benchmark, and it's really about how it behaves in your particular scenario. Let's say, for example, for this agent era we entered in, doing proper function calling. So the ability for an LLM to figure out that it needs access to some external system via function calling. For example, having a model that is good at function calling will make a big difference with the quality of the responses an AI agent would give you. So it's important to test across. I mean, I think one topic we don't talk about enough is evaluation in general. And each application, and it's not about evaluating the LLM itself or the framework itself. It's more evaluating in the context of the use case. So let's say with this search system, smart search system, whatever you want to call it, to search through interesting offers and so on, you'd have to prepare some kind of evaluation with some known data that you have, and then say, yeah, for that kind of queries from the user, you should return that kind of results and see how it compares. And it's even more important, I would say, because sometimes you just upgrade. Even with the same model, you just upgrade with the latest drop, and you may get different results. So it's super important to tweak maybe your prompt or something at some point, and ensure that you've got the best outcome and something that's more predictable or determinist, because it's not always the case. And sometimes a small variation somewhere in a model or the latest version, or a tweak in a prompt can make a big difference. You think it fixes something in one area, and then in another area of your application, it degrades in terms of the quality of responses. Strange.
So going back to the fundamentals of software engineering, like we write tests for our code. When we change code, we run our tests. If they pass, we're good. Same thing. Like, let's write some evaluations for our LLM powered applications. When we upgrade to the newest Gemini, let's see if those pass. If they don't, let's figure out what's going on there, right?
Yes.
And as you said, the tough part is a lot of what we're dealing with is non-deterministic. So like, I could ask the same prompt 5 times and get 5 different answers, but what is the relevancy of that answer? And I think we really need to hone in on that. So Great point.
Yeah, that's definitely tricky.
Another thing that we've talked with your coworker Dan Dobrin a bunch
Yeah.
on this show. Dan's a great guy, not only because his first name is awesome, but he's also. But yeah, we've talked about like trying to figure out like what model to use for different applications, right? One of the things I always go back to with Google and Gemini in particular is cost. Some of the models in Gemini, like the Flash models, are like 10 cents and 40 cents per million tokens in and out. And if you're building an application at high throughput, that matters. Some of the other ones out there, $15, $75 for a million tokens out. Like if you're running high throughput, like that is going to be a big factor in determining. So it's not always like, what is the answer? Cost goes into it. There's a whole bunch of like things that go into determine it. What other things are you kind of looking at when you're like evaluating models?
Well, I was going to say, in terms of throughput, so I don't want to bring the chat topic again, but especially for all those for all those use cases where you have a chat, you want to have the time to first token to be fast, because you want this streaming response to appear quickly so that the user doesn't feel like, hey, what's going on? Is this thing actually working? Yeah, it is. Let's wait a few seconds to get the beginning of an answer. So especially Gemini Flash is, well, as the name indicates, but it's super snappy, super fast. And I think that's also part of what makes overall an application nice to use when it can answer rapidly. So it's super fast. Of course, the quality is there as well, even if it's a fast model. And what else? And you might have heard of the Nano Banana model.
I have, the new image model.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that it's actually a chat model that generates images, right? So you can chat with it. And then as part of its response, it may give you an image, but it may ask you further or follow-up questions like, would you like me to change this in that way or something? So you start a conversation. And I think, there are different things that are great with that model, like character consistency and how you can combine things together, etc. But it's nice to see how... this experience is in terms of being able to have a great model in terms like super fast, like Flash, knowledgeable and everything, but at the same time to be fully multimodal and able to generate crazy images. That's like combining everything together in one.
Yeah, and as you said, it's really fast. I've used other image models where it's like you got to wait 30 seconds to a minute, and Gemini's like in 10 seconds or less. So that's really good. I'm still messing around with that, trying to figure out a way to automate some of my thumbnails, because that's one process I hate doing, and I hope to automate that soon. So something else I wanted to talk to you about. Deshaun is a big fan of open source models. He often says he doesn't have cloud money. He has money to run everything on his... How many Raspberry Pis are we running today, Deshaun?
104.
No. Okay. Wow.
So
I have Raspberry Pi money. That's all.
So I know Google has some open source models as well. Have you had a chance to kind of dive into some of those?
Yeah, so especially the Gemma family of models, that's our open weight offering, and it's actually deriving from the same principles in terms of development of models as Gemini. And interestingly, like the very last Gemma 3N model is as good as an open weight model as Gemini 1.5 was less than a year ago. So It's crazy to see how much small models are becoming as good and performant and everything as the models that were state of the art back a year, 6 months, or a year ago. That's totally crazy.
That's crazy.
So I've played with Gemma 3, and just this morning I published an article about the embedding Gemma variant, which is actually an embedding model derived from the Gemma model. And again, it's like a 300 million parameter models. It's super
Wow.
small. It can run, in the browser with Transformer.js, and I did a full semantic search, vibe coded, of course, because I'm not a React TypeScript kind of developer. I'm a Java developer, So I vibe coded it, and I managed to build a semantic search. So you give it documents and you give it a query, and it's going to say, yeah, so this document matches this query best. And I'm like, wow. So everything runs in the browser there. Wow, that's kind of crazy. So and Google, besides those Gemma flavors, I think it is one of the biggest contributors to Hugging Face Hub in terms of all the different kinds of models we've released across over the years, basically. So we're of course everybody sees Gemini everywhere because that's the one we push. But we've been sharing a lot with the community of researchers, of people who want to hack stuff with local models on their Raspberry Pis. So there's lots that's available as open weight and open papers and so on.
Yeah, I'm just going to add of the models, right? I use Olama locally on several machines. Of the models, Gemma's pretty amazing. Like it's the one that I lean into the most. I do it even with my code assistants. I use Gemma 3 to help me out. It is a powerful. And are the names similar on purpose? Are they related? Gemma and Gemini?
Gemma and Gemini share the same DNA basically. So that's it's a gem out of Gemini. So fantastic. Gemma, well, something like this.
Fantastic. I assumed, and I thought that was the case. I wanted to make sure.
A lot of the big huge models, the Google Geminis, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, they're not going anywhere. But I do see a lot of talk in the industry about us moving towards a lot more of these like specialized, local, whether they're open source or not, right? To some of these smaller models. Do you guys are you hearing a lot of the same?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's maybe it's less so in the US, but in Europe, we're very privacy focused. And there are some countries, even for example, compared to France, Germany, for example, is even stronger on that aspect and insists even more on this full privacy so that the data never goes on the internet and that kind of stuff. So I think those open models open that up in the sense that, of course, you can keep stuff running locally on your own servers, your own, without having to rely on the big players and having your stuff going through the spies in the US or something. So there's definitely that aspect. Also, honestly, in Europe, we've got lots of great researchers in AI. And so let's say, Yann Lequin, the guy who leads Meta AI,
I love him.
He's French. You've got the Mistral models, which are really excellent. That came from France, or the
Google
Hugging Face
DeepMind.
And even part of Gemma, for example, like I don't know what's the exact breakdown. Maybe half of Gemma is being developed in Europe because we've got really great AI researchers there. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, you mentioned two words that I wanted to touch on today, which was vibe coding. I'm a big fan of all of your blog posts. I go through them, read them. They're really like well thought out. And again, it's an extension of you like playing with something and like teaching it back to the community. You recently wrote one on vibe coding a Chrome extension. So two parts to that. One, just tell me about that experience for you.
Yeah. So I'm also part of a podcast in French, a tech podcast, and we always prepare show notes manually. So we want to share this article, or the release of that framework or something, and then manually enter the show notes each time was a bit painful. So I usually use Gemini. So I go to Gemini and say, here's the article. Please create a summary for me, and then I usually like shorten in or update it manually, but like the first draft, I wanted auto-generated because it's going to be like a better job than what I could do. So I really wanted that, but sometimes, for example, Gemini or other models refuse to summarize the URL you give them, so you kind of have to copy and paste the whole content.
Yep.
Or but so I thought, yeah, if I was doing that in the browser, that could actually work, and that would be simpler, because where do I read that article in the browser? So I'm like, hey, maybe I should do within the browser, a tool that helps me create summaries and prepare bullet point lists for my show notes. So I'm like, okay, I've never written a Chrome extension. How do I do that? I have no idea.
Love this. Yep.
And I use Gemini and Gemini CLI to do that. So I said, yeah, I need to do a Chrome extension. Then, sometimes I want bullet points. Sometimes I just want a summary, or French and English, or maybe summarize this thing, or prepare even a social blog post, social media post, because I want to share that with the world as well, not just for the podcast or something. So I added feature after feature, and that was pretty trivial. It's like a conversation. Oh, it's not doing exactly what I need. No, let's tweak this. Let's come back to this. Let's add that. And that was fairly straightforward. So sometimes, I'm not always 100% vibe coding, in the sense that I don't look at the code. I'm a developer.
Correct.
So I always look at the code.
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes you get some surprises, because I remember once, I think that was with Gemini, so I'll be honest with you. I had a front end stuff that was, with static assets, JavaScript, etc., that was accessing the backend service that was using Gemini. But it wanted to do, if I hadn't paid attention, it wanted to call Gemini directly from the front end. So it asked for the API key in the backend. So it exposed my API key in the backend so that the front end could use it. No, just don't do that. So I'm not fully vibe coding, in the sense that I do look at the code, because I want to ensure that I understand what's going on, and it's not doing stupid things like exposing an API key.
You're doing the right thing now. And there's a great quote from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, where he says, AI for him, it raises the floor, raises the ceiling, and lowers the floor for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what you're at. And I often talk about this. Like, I've never written an iOS app. I have an iPhone, a Mac. If I wanted to write an application and deploy it to the App Store, I am 100% confident that I could do that this week. And before AI, I would say that confidence level would probably be like 50-60%, right? And it would take a lot longer. And so I think the term vibe coding is pretty generic at this point. And I think for people who don't know how to code, it allows them to take an idea and like get something working, right?
Yeah.
For those of us who do know how to code, I think it just makes us much more productive, as long as we are sticking to the principles that we're used to when it comes to software engineering. I don't care if a machine's writing it or you're writing it. You should be reviewing your code and understanding every decision that it makes. So I love this era, and I love like being able to like build stuff that I probably wouldn't have been before.
I saw a categorization rubric for hey, how much has AI helped you with this content, with this presentation, with this artwork or whatever. There was DEF CON, one of the booths that was selling artwork got kicked out of the conference because it was AI generated stuff.
Oh my.
And they're like, yeah, we told you it had, and then from that thread, I found this little list, and hey, I don't know if it's 0 is high or low, but it's basically, hey, no AI used to create this content, and you give it a 5 or whatever. And then there's these different scales, hey, I used AI for the concept, but I did most of the code myself, or I made, everything is AI driven from the beginning, fully AI, but this order. And I realize right now I'm trying to be more like Dan, in that I'm trying to use these tools, use the stuff that's available so that I can be more productive, so I can do more stuff, more of the important fun stuff. And at this point, there's nothing that I'm building, full transparency, there's nothing that I'm building without at least asking an AI, how does this look? I'm using it as my pair, and I do pair with quotes. I do the capital A, capital I, always to like double check. And I'm doing everything along, and I feel like I'm still looking in the code, and it's still my code at the end. But I've always got a Gemma doing a review, summarize like, can you optimize this? Like, what am I missing? Like, I'm always asking those questions. So everything that I do from this point on, I'm going to have, and not just my code. Like, maybe not all of my emails, but a good 10% of my emails, I'm saying like, hey, does this sound professional? And could this be taken the wrong way? I'm double checking because I have this tool here that can maybe save my career, make it so that, right, it's hard to understand how people are going to hear things when they read it. So yeah, asking, getting that extra help, and I'm doing it more. I'm trying to do it more often.
Yeah, and I'd love your thoughts on this too, Guillaume. But like, I feel like a lot of the noise coming out of programmers are going to be obsolete. We don't need this anymore. Company, it's writing 80% of our code. This a lot of this noise feels like it's coming from people who aren't actually writing code and actually reviewing this code. And I don't know, I have some thoughts, but I don't want to like bias your response here. How do you feel about like the future of work and where we are with software developers? Are they going away tomorrow?
No, I mean, we will always need developers. That's for sure. And I think that we're not going to go extinguished, and on the contrary, we will be augmented. And maybe there's this transition because not everybody is using AI yet, but progressively everybody will. And even junior developers, okay, well, maybe they'll be using AI even more than us, but progressively they will learn the trade and the best practices and so on. And I honestly think that once we go through that transition, this transition will have some impact, maybe a bit less junior developers, maybe. But I'm not even sure of that. And on the contrary, I really think that it's going to, I mean, the key thing, the key difference, I think, between the new junior developers that come and us, the old guys with some white hair, if you have hair, sorry.
No offense taken. No offense taken.
But honestly, they will be AI native. We are not AI native. We've learned along the way to use those tools, but they will leverage AI tools better than we've been doing so far. So I'm actually more optimistic than pessimistic, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I think quite the opposite of what a lot of people are saying. I think we are actually going to be more in demand in the next few years than obsolete. And one of the great quotes I heard a couple weeks ago on a YouTube channel was that it's great that someone can take an idea and build something that works, and in this vibe coding area, but working code and enterprise software are worlds apart.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much more than just writing the code. Writing the code is
Right.
10%, 20% maybe, but the rest is, I mean, all the enterprise integration, observability, deployment, constraints, database or whatnot. I mean, maybe AI will help us through all those stages, of course. But honestly, I mean, between something that you vibe coded, in your sofa or something, and something that hits production and millions of users, there's a
big difference. Like totally. I said, worlds apart.
Worlds apart, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that what I keep telling developers is that, like you said, like the mechanics of writing code has always there's always been tools to improve that. I remember when IDEs came out and had IntelliSense, like, oh, this is going to be the end of us, right? Like, it's just another tool for a developer. And as Deshaun and I forget who we need to attribute this quote to, but AI is not going to replace developers, but developers who use AI will replace developers. So it's just one of those tools that you have to start learning. And I'm not saying you need to be all in on it. Like, you shouldn't be, like you said, it's not writing 100% of my code, but it's just another tool in our tool belt. And I think we should all take advantage of it. So. Cool.
have
One
a
other
question.
thing I wanted to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, as a developer advocate, what's the thing that you would propose, that you would say, hey, developers, you should be doing this in today's age, right? We've already said they're kind of AI native. What's the advice that you would give a developer today to help them along? How are you going to advocate for them? What's the advice that you would give them to point them in the right direction today?
Yeah, I mean, I think to come back to my point about curiosity, I mean, curiosity has always been what has been, driving me my whole lifetime and career. And the thing is to be open to learn new things and spend some time. It doesn't have to be stuff that you experiment with, during your off time, weekend, or whatever, but try to spend a bit of time every week learning something new, trying something new. And in that new stuff you should be trying, and that new category stuff, definitely try to use those AI tools and see how you can benefit from them, or the ones that fit better with your workflow, etc. So curiosity, be open, try stuff whenever you get a chance, you get time.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
Good advice.
One other thing I wanted to cover before we kind of call it a show. So we're talking about large language models. You mentioned like tools earlier. So a lot of these large language models have the ability to call a tool to kind of augment its context. We've seen the rise of things like MCP, building these MCP servers to, again, just kind of augment context, provide functionality in kind of a reusable format. We have that. And then there's the idea of agents. And
Yep.
I know you've been writing a lot about ADK. This is something from Google that I haven't had a chance to dive into. Again, so many things to learn, so little time. Can you tell us a little bit about ADK and kind of what problem it's trying to solve?
What is ADK?
Yeah, ADK. So ADK is the agent development kit to create agents, AI agents. So it started with a Python framework at first, but now we're expanding to other languages as well. So the second most important language was Java. So it was launched in last May, I think, during Google I/O. And we're going to have TypeScript and Go as well. So it's a way to define AI agents, and AI agents are often not just one LLM with some tools, but several subsystems, let's say several LLMs with several different tools that work together, like in a workflow or in a graph kind of way. And the way ADK lets you define agents is actually with a hierarchy of such agents. So there may be a top level agent that may, let's say you want to create a travel agent, then maybe you're going to have the hotel agent, the flight booking agent, etc., that are going to work in collaboration together. And you can also define things like different kind of workflows. So some things should be done sequentially, some others could be done in parallel, some others may be done in a loop. Let's say you have something that prepares an article, a draft, then maybe another agent will review, another one will refine the content, and you do the loop a few times until you're happy with the outcome. So all those things so it's part of the framework itself to offer those kind of patterns to implement some kind of smart system based on LLMs.
So really you're defining an agent and like the characteristics that go with it, like what model am I using? What is my system prompt? What's the user prompt? What's the temperature? All the kind of things that go into defining that particular agent then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And all the tools. So for example, when you use ADK with Gemini, you also have access to things like the Google search tool. So if you want to ground the answers that your agent gives, it's going to, so as long as you plug that tool, it's going to tell you, yeah, this part of the response that I gave you actually came from that link, from that article that I found on the web. So you can really ground with the hard truth, maybe not hard truth, but the information that it actually found on the internet. And as well, because LLMs, they've got these cut-off dates. They've been trained up to a certain point in time. But because you give it access to Google search results, you get the most up-to-date information as well. Even information that's been much more recent than when the model was last trained.
Awesome. So I'm trying to remember too, because sometimes I get confused. There are so many different products out there. This is for building like agents. Then there is something for agent to agent communication. Is that true? Am I getting this?
Yeah, there's A2A. I think that's
A2A.
what you have
Maybe
in mind.
that's
Yeah, agent to agent protocol. So that's a protocol that we started, but we try to encourage others to join, and that's what happened. And we also gave that protocol to the Linux Foundation. So now you've got for example, the A2A implementation for Java was contributed by the fine folks of Red Hat. So you've got several companies joining this effort and trying to standardize how different agents can collaborate and discuss together across language boundaries, framework boundaries, or so you can have an agent written with long graph, long chain, or something in Python, talk to an agent written with long chain 4J or Spring AI, etc. So it's a way to get maybe we'll see some kind of economy where, I'm offering an agent, and then developers will be able to pick, agents off the shelf and say, I'd like to combine this Airbnb agent in my travel agent because I want to get listings of nice apartments that I could rent, So A2A is there for that, and ADK adds integration with A2A so that ADK built agents can discuss with and communicate with agents with other, Spring AI, Quarkus built AI agents. It's possible. Yeah.
Man, what an exciting time. There's just so many things going on. It's really hard to keep up. How do you stay up to date with everything that's going on?
So I'm following more than 100 accounts on Twitter. I'm subscribed to a few mailing lists like TLDR AI, and another one more focused on MCP from Pulse MCP or something. So I've got a few sources of information and streams of information, and I kind of read that on a daily basis. I always spend a bit of time every morning and every night before going to bed to read those kind of things to stay up to date.
I'm gonna have to get your Chrome extension, and because we do the manual show notes too, and it's not a great way of doing it. Okay, one more thing before I let you go. Java is how many days away from 25? 2 weeks maybe?
Yeah.
8
days.
8? Oh wow. So we are coming up on Java 25. You've kind of lived through many versions of Java. Are you excited about anything? What's going on in the Java world that excites you?
So I've been a big fan of everything that came out of records, sealed interfaces, and pattern matching, and so on. And I like all the refinements, like the destructuring in the switch, not statements, because now it's in expressions, the switch expressions, and so on. I find that super elegant, the way it's been introduced over the years, over the course of several key releases from, let's say, records started
16
or 14 or
14 they started preview, I think.
Preview in 14, and progressively, so we are up to 25 in a few days. But it's been like a progression and nice addition, and with lots of taste. Honestly, the engineers working on the design of the language did a really awesome job. So I really like the path and the progression throughout all those features. I love that.
Yeah, that's been pretty great. And I think I remember seeing you wrote like your own. So the one issue with records is like, hey, if I create a record, it's immutable. I want to just like create a new record from that. I think you wrote like some proof of concept, but I think we're getting like some way to destructure a record later on into a new record. And I think that's one of the things I'm looking forward to as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now that's really, really cool, and also, if you just to come back full circle to Groovy added support for those new features, So even if you, so Groovy 5.0 was released a couple of weeks ago, I forget.
Yep.
And interestingly, because of how compatible it is with Java, we added support for new Java features, even if you run Groovy on old JDK versions. So even if you're in JDK 11 and Groovy 5 on top of it, you could already benefit and start to learn about those new Java features and use them throughout your Groovy code base before using them in Java.
Yeah, and I think
so
I got into Groovy because of that. Like Groovy had lambdas before Java did, and I was like, oh, this is really nice. And like by the time it came in the JDK, I was like already kind of familiar with how to use them. So yeah,
exactly,
that worked out well.
That's
cool. All right. Well, we've run out of time. I want to thank you for coming on, talking with us. I love talking with you. This was a lot of fun. If you want to be found on the internet, some people don't want to be found, but you're in a position where I think you do. So where can folks find out more about you?
So I always use G Laforge attached, no space or anything, everywhere. So whether it's Blue Sky, Twitter, or X, or GitHub, or my blog is glaforge.dev. So if you search for G Laforge, that's likely going to be me. So actually, there's another Guillaume Laforge who's doing 3D stuff, but that's not me. If I talk about 3D, that's not me. But otherwise, that's me.
Well, now you could though with AI, you could start taking over the 3D space. Well, again, thank you, Guillaume, for taking some time out of your day. This was a lot of fun. And for everyone else, thanks for joining, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.